I had no idea what it was that I needed to write. I just knew I needed to write something.
Welcome to Author Chat, featuring this lady. We're talking behind the scenes information, the inspiration, and everything it took to write this book. As always, a spoiler alert is in effect, so don't go any further unless you've read or listened to this book.
Now, if you've watched my Flame and Ember behind the scenes video, you'll know that I didn't really plan on doing historical romance at first. I was very much set on, I was a fantasy writer. I wanted to write fantasy, and Flame and Ember had just kind of been this fluke that I had wanted to write. At some point, I wanted to come back to it, but I didn't start off Flame and Ember with the idea of building a series or a world around this character. And then, to my great surprise, Flame and Ember started taking off.
Cash money, I'm gonna make it rain.
And because of that, I immediately pivoted and started writing my next historical romance. I had no idea what it was that I needed to write. I just knew I needed to write something.
Now, say it. Do it now. Do it now.
I know I had introduced Mina's family that while they hadn't really featured hugely in her story, I had introduced Graham, and so I thought, maybe I could do some of the Ashbrooks siblings, and started off with that idea.
Hold on to your butts.
Now, I did kind of model Graham's career after Captain Wentworth from Persuasion. Not entirely, because I didn't really want Graham to be wealthy. Even though I did write Mina and Simon's story as being more on the upper class side of things, I really wanted characters who were a little more down to earth. Don't get me wrong, I love all of the trappings of wealth and everything, but as a Regency romance reader, I am not a fan of the lords and the ladies and the upper crust to that level, just because it's not realistic, and I really love realism.
You see, I'm a bit of a poet, and you did not know it. What?
Now, Graham's actual struggle throughout the book with his injury and his frustration with his current situation, that is actually something that is very much inspired by my own life. When I was in my early 20s, I received an injury while doing, I was doing a bunch of volunteer work down in California, and I got injured while I was doing it. I had to go home, I had to recuperate, and frankly, it took a very, very long time before my feet were ever back to normal. I really messed up the tendons.
I stepped onto the grill and I clamped down on my foot. That's it. I don't see what's so hard to believe about that.
I still have issues with it from time to time. So yeah, that Graham's injury and his frustration was honestly very much inspired by what I had gone through with this injury of wanting to go back to a life that you had, not being able to. And while mine was not as extreme as his was, I was smarter with the doctors. I could never get two doctors to agree what the problem was with my foot, but almost all of them wanted to start cutting open my foot. And I'm like, I'm not letting anyone slice into me until they could at least agree on what the problem is. And so I did not go that route, but that frustration and that desperation of wanting to get back to the life that you had and what you love and not being able to is something that I very much had struggled with. The reformed rake trope is so commonplace in romance. It's something that you see all the time, that the bad boy gets the sweet girl in the end, and I totally get where it's coming from, because I think all of us have this little part of us that would love to see someone love us so much that they're willing to change, fundamentally change their life just to be with us. Come on, there is definitely something very appealing there. But honestly, it is a trope that I hate so flippin' much.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
Because it feeds into this very false hope that someone can change for you, which is just not possible. It is not possible. And it's something that I have seen so many women, actually I'll say men too. I've known plenty of men and women who've married someone in the hopes that that love will change them.
I don't think it means what you think it means.
And the reality is the conversation between Tabby and her father at the very beginning is very much my philosophy about the whole thing. I absolutely do believe people can change. I 100% believe that. In all of my books, I feature a lot of character arcs, a lot of changes, redeeming of villains. I mean, like, I fully 100% believe that people can change, but I also know that they cannot change unless that desire comes from within them. Because the minute someone changes to impress another person, that's never going to stick. That's never going to stick, because no matter how much you love someone, at some point, they're going to drive you crazy. You're going to have arguments or disagreements, or in Tabby's case, hardships came. Life came along and dealt them some hard blows. And when that happens, it's the person who's changed starts looking at it and saying, well, why do I need to make myself this person for them? Like, why do I need to do that? No, that true change of heart needs to come from within, and needs to be something that individual wants independently of their romance. Like, for example, if you've never seen the movie Penelope, I highly recommend it. So adorable. And that's one of the few redeemed bad guy movies that I've seen where I truly love it and believe it, because he makes changes in his personality after he thinks there's no way I'm going to be with her. We can't be together, but I want to change. Now, she's inspired me rather than I want to get with her, so I'm going to do what I have to do to make her like me,
No, he's got a point.
So basically, I got thinking about how, what would it be like to have one of these girls who marries the bad boy and then discovers too late that she's made a mistake.
I've made a huge mistake.
And that absolutely just created this incredible story for me with Tabby, because especially at that time, there was no way to get out of that situation. Divorce did exist in England in the 1800s, but it was extremely difficult.
I'm going to make this way harder than it needs to be.
In fact, I think it's fascinating that Jane Austen features, I think, 2 separate divorces between her, was it 6, 7 books? But I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but there were less than one a year. And it took an act of parliament to be able to divorce your spouse. And it was not something that the average person could get. You had to be extremely wealthy and very well connected in order to get a divorce. And so here she is. She is not wealthy anymore. She's not well connected. She's stuck with the man that she's chosen to marry. And they are miserable. And there's something about that I just thought was so heartbreaking and so rife for drama and for incredible character growth and conflict.
Here's my best approximation of human crying.
Something else that is actually, I would even say it's a fairly common theme through a lot of my stories now. Is Tabby's optimism. And that is something that is, it's one of the reasons why I love writing like grump and sunshine tropes, which there's a lot of them in my books. This is my first one. I didn't even know what that was at the time. I just knew I really liked optimism, and, optimistic characters and kind of grumpy characters together are such a great pairing.
You've just got to turn that frown upside down. That's a smile, not an upside-down frown.
I am a firm believer that happiness is something that you choose to be. You choose to be happy. It's not about your circumstances. It's not about what's going on around you. It's about what you choose to be. And And so a lot of her attitude towards that is very much something that I very firmly believe. No one's life turns out perfect. I mean, heaven knows my life is not at all what I would like it to be, what I had planned it to be, what I still wish would happen and change. But we can't define our happiness and contentment by what we lack, or by the way, the knocks that we are given in life.
I feel happy. I feel happy.
Because there's always reasons to be unhappy, and there's always reasons to be happy. And I honestly think that there's no difference in the people who are happy versus the people who are upset. The difference isn't that, oh, the people who are happy, their life is easier. It's that they're more able to focus on the good things in their life. And so I really wanted to weave that into Tabby's story, especially when she has so much going against her. And especially being able to pit her against Graham, who, while his circumstances really stink right now. I mean, they're not great, but at the same time, he's in a good position. He's got a loving family. He's got enough income to live comfortably. Not like he doesn't have to go back to his job because he's going to starve if he doesn't have it. He just basically has lost something he really loves and wants to go back to, but it's not there anymore. Versus Tabby, whose life is really, truly awful right now. She's got one good thing, and that's her son. But beyond that, her life is pretty miserable. And so pitting the two of them against each other and having her help Graham see the possibilities in life and see the goodness that is there, it was a lot of fun to write. Now, as I started playing around with this idea that I knew who Tabby was, I knew who Graham was, I knew their individual problems, but I had a big, massive issue about, okay, well, how do I bring these two people together? Because I didn't really want to do the old, oh, she's a widow now, and you know, her previous husband was so terrible that he's made her gun shy, and she doesn't want to open her heart up to another man again. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like that story, but I don't know, I just didn't want to do that. And as I was trying to think about what to do to get these people together, like, you know, what do I need to do with these characters, I started thinking about one of my absolute favorite stories of all time. I love Jane Eyre so much. It is something that it's just a book I really love. Don't get me wrong, the hero in that is not awesome, but Jane herself is so amazing and wonderful, and even Mr. Rochester, who is difficult and frustrating at times, like, you can understand where he's coming from. I don't know, I just love that story. Anyway, and I got thinking about one of my favorite scenes in that book, which is after Jane figures out that the man she's in love with is still married to someone else and that she can't be with him. She decides she needs to leave, but he just begs her to stay with him. I mean, it is just such a tense, heartbreaking scene because he's begging her to stay. She wants to stay, but she recognizes it's not the right thing. He's married. We can't be together because of that. And so she makes the difficult decision to leave. And I just, honestly, that is probably one of my favorite scenes of all time. I mean, there's just something about it that is so heartbreaking. And that choosing to be a good person over sacrificing, that what you really want, because you know it's not right. And whether or not you agree with the morality surrounding that question, Jane looked at it and said, I can't be a man's mistress. I can't be his mistress. I can't break that commandment. I can't sin against God. I can't do this. This is not right on so many different levels. And she makes that selfless decision of saying, I'm going to sacrifice what I want, to do what I think is right. And I just, oh my gosh, seriously, it makes me cry every time. And let me just tell you right now, if you haven't seen the Masterpiece Theater version of it, go see it. It's fantastic. And the scene with it is just absolutely, oh, every time I watch it, I bawl like a baby. And so, you know, I really got thinking about that scene, and honestly, that's what inspired keeping Joshua alive, was the idea of putting these two characters who are both, unfortunately, very good people. Not unfortunately, but they're good people. And as much as they want to be together, they look at it and say, we can't. We just can't. You know, like we can't be together. And that tension that comes from the fact that she's married, she cannot get a divorce, she can't leave her husband, you know, and especially back then, I mean, even if she did want to leave her husband and shack up with Graham, which she wouldn't, even if she wanted to, she would lose her son, because Joshua would retain the rights to his child, and Tabby would have to give up her son as well. And so to give up her morality, give up her child, give up everything to be with Graham, as much as she loves him and as much as she wants to be with him, that she is not willing to sacrifice all of that. Honestly, the modern world, Hollywood, literature, all of that say that it's most important to just go after what you want. It doesn't matter the consequences. It doesn't matter who else is hurt in the process. It is about what do you want. For example, I saw, oh my gosh, the worst movie ever. I'm going to say it's the worst movie ever because honestly, it still disgusts me. And I saw, it was a movie called Something Borrowed. And, oh my gosh, that movie is just awful. And I don't care if you liked it. You can rail at me in the comments if you want, but frankly, I judge people who like that because I honestly, I'm sorry, I don't think that there is ever an excuse to commit adultery or to cheat on someone. I just don't. And the whole story of Something Borrowed is based around the idea that the heroine and the hero are, basically the hero is engaged to the heroine's best friend. And the heroine and the hero have this affair going on through the whole movie. And we're supposed to cheer for them. And they try to justify it by making the best friend be this horrible human being. But frankly, I'm sitting there watching it, all I'm thinking is, why are you best friends with her and why are you engaged with her? And if you don't like it, then break up with the fiance and be with the woman you want. Like, don't carry on an affair. Anyway. And it's funny because I remember going and seeing that and just being absolutely disgusted. I'm watching this movie and it's just like, I would have gotten up and left if it weren't for the fact that, one, I kept expecting it to get better. Like, there's got to be something better in this movie. And then two, I was with a group of people and I'm just sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know how anyone could possibly love this movie. And then we stand up. And I could hear it throughout the whole theater. Like, people are like, just, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. And a lot of the people I was with were like, oh, that was so romantic. I'm like, what? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, and that kind of thought process is so prevalent. The idea is, well, the hero and heroine were in love and they should be together. And to me, I'm like, I don't know. Being in love with someone does not give you an excuse to be selfish. And it doesn't give you the right to break your vows to someone else. It doesn't give you the right to run off and abandon your child. It doesn't give you the right. I mean, like, being in love is, and this may sound strange coming from a romance writer, but the love is not the end all be all. And it is wonderful, and it is. I should clarify, romantic love is not the end all be all. Love is the end all be all, but romantic love it doesn't give you a license to be a bad person, honestly. And so I really decided I was going to keep Joshua alive. I was going to make this a hurdle. Now, of course, I had to give them that happily ever after and ended up bumping Joshua off towards the end.
I will find you. I will kill you.
Now, strangely enough, the hardest scene for me to write in the entire book was the ending, actually. After Graham finds out that Joshua is alive, he rushes off to Tabby's side to be with her.
You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you.
But when he actually got to Tabby and arrived at her side, the rest of that scene was really, really hard to write because I knew it was that happily ever after moment, right? They're supposed to kiss and ride off into the sunset. But I knew Tabby was not ready for that. But she is not in the right stage of her, grieving and mourning and healing process after all of the difficulties she suffered to suddenly turn her heart on to Graham. And so that was actually a really hard scene to write because I just didn't know what to do with it, because I knew that they were supposed to be together, and that they were going to be together and everything, but I could not give them that kiss scene. And I'm a firm believer that every single romance has to have a kiss scene. Like, you have to have that moment of we kiss and a declaration of love of some sort, some sort of declaration of love. And Tabby is not ready for either of those things. Graham is, but Tabby is not. And so originally, actually, I wrote it with just him coming to her. The scene that you see now where he basically, they agree we're happy for now. Like, we don't have to rush things. We don't have to go into anything. We're not even going to talk about it, really. I'm just here for you. But I just knew that wasn't enough. So in the end, I ended up writing the entire epilogue to be able to give that and to show Tabby, now that she is reached that point where she is happy to jump forward with it, that she is ready and willing and in a good emotional place that she can be with Graham.
If I have not spoken, it is because I am afraid I will awaken myself from this dream. It cannot be true.
Once it came together, it wasn't a horribly hard scene to write, but it took me a long time. I knew something was missing, and it was the epilogue is honestly what it was. And once I had that in place, it was great. Okay, favorite scenes. Oof, that is always a tricky one. I would definitely say that one of my absolute favorite scenes to write was, and this may sound really, really dark, but when Philip gets sick.
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity.
When he is, when Tabby is just absolutely desperate for help, and he is struggling and so sick, and she's so terrified and hoping for some sort of help. And that really dark moment is, I really love writing those kind of moments. I really do. I love moments with huge amounts of emotions and feelings, and I love it when I'm sitting there bawling while I'm writing and bawling while I'm editing.
She's a witch!
And that may sound sadistic or something, but like, I don't know. I love getting the feels when with the book, and so, like, for me, that was a really not fun scene to write, but I really enjoyed writing that scene. And as a little side note, I actually had originally planned on killing Philip. Please don't hate me. Please don't hate me. I just switched over from writing fantasy. And not only that, but I just finished writing a couple fantasy series, and in those kind of things, in the final battle, you're just killing people right and left. I mean, I'm used to just slaughtering people. I'm like, oh, you want to give someone an emotional gut punch? You kill that character. And I still kind of had a little bit of that mentality going on, and as well too, I at the time when I was originally plotting it out, I wasn't sure if I wanted this to be the moment where Tabby leaves Joshua. If that, I was kind of leaning towards that happening, and it was just something I really wanted to do, which sounds totally wrong and horrible, and I recognize that, and please don't hate me.
Boo! Boo!
And I got talking with my mother, who is one of my she is like my best sounding board. She is so great at coming up with ideas and bouncing ideas off of her. And I mentioned it, and she got very upset. Don't you dare do that. Don't you dare. She got very huffy with me. She insisted that I could not kill off Philip. And thankfully, not only did I take her advice, but it actually was, I feel like it was an important thing to keep him alive. Otherwise, like I said, I mean, honestly, at that point, Tabby would look like a horrible person for staying with Joshua. I mean, there's really no reason for her to stay with Joshua. Like, you know, if she's making all of her own money and you know, she's the breadwinner of the family, and her son is gone, there's no reason for her to try again with Joshua. So yeah, I decided not to, and I'm really glad I didn't. I think that the book is better the way it is than what I had originally planned. And while it's funny, though Jane Eyre and that goodbye scene between her and Mr. Rochester inspired, you know, a lot of the story, it wasn't that scene that I liked so much in like, I like writing that scene just fine, but I think the scene that I enjoyed writing way more was when Graham confronts Joshua. And, you know, after Graham is the one who has to swoop in and help Tabby, with Philip and is helping her through all of this difficulty, and Joshua comes home, stumbling home drunk, having spent the medicine for his son on booze, you know, just this horrible human being, and all that jazz, and when Graham confronts him and you know, doesn't hurt him, but you know, just jabs him with his cane in the mud and just, you know, warns him. Oh, I loved writing that scene. That was one of those like great moments of like, ooh, yeah, I liked it. I really liked I like those kind of confrontation scenes as well. They're kind of fun. So
this has been Author Chat with M.A. Nichols. Click subscribe and follow to be notified when new audiobooks and behind-the-scenes information are uploaded.